morning. We begin tonight with breaking news and frightening news for a great many people in the Halifax area tonight. What began as a lovely, albeit windy day in and around the city has become a smoky and destructive day.
In the Atlantic Ocean because of a brush fire out of control east of Halifax that spread with the wind. The highway is closed.
It started as a brush fire. Now, as you can see by the pictures, there's huge clouds of smoke.
Indeed, fires are burning tonight in Bridgewater, Tantallon, Windsor, and Milton. But the one getting the most attention this hour is a major blaze in Porters Lake.
Got there around 4 to 4:30, and at that time fire was on its way, and we had very high winds that day, and a lot of the fuels were very dry, so we were facing extreme fire behavior really very early on from the initial call.
Officials are calling the fire burning in the Porters Lake and Lake Echo area near Halifax out of control tonight. It's one of two.
And when they said there was a big burn out towards Lake Echo, Lawrencetown way, my blood pressure rose quite drastically because I was looking out the window. I could see these big flames, not flames, of smoke, and it was thick and dark and black, coming from the direction of roughly where I lived, and I really started getting a cold sweat.
I started to head home, and I live up on Candy Mountain Road, so as I started to drive down the Lawrencetown Road and then saw that the road had been blocked off, we realized at that point that there was something big happening.
Smoke rolling behind our house and the big wall, and it was almost glowing at that time. So we were scared. I was actually scared, and yeah, it was scary.
When I arrived on the fire, I was actually on the east side of the number 7 highway and was trying to get to the west side of the number 7 highway. And at that point, shortly after I had arrived, it had jumped the number 7 and I couldn't get across. And that 107 highway, as you can appreciate, is several hundred feet wide. And that fire, it actually creates its own weather as well. So in addition to the high winds that were taking place, it's creating its own additional winds and what they call fire brands, which are twigs, etc., that are on fire. They get carried up into the air and can very easily jump long distances like that as well. So that was how it was able to not only jump the 107 highway in addition to the smaller number 7, but also we had to jump down in one of the southern lakes where it jumped probably about 400 to 500 meters across and had to jump fire there as well. I knew it was going to be a major event. I just pulled in as many air and ground resources as I could, and was initially working very closely with HRM with their resources as well.
Once the first units started arriving on scene and we realized how large it was going to be, we started mobilizing our tactical unit and our command post, that sort of stuff rolling. Realized we were going to need a lot more resources than what we had there. At the same time, natural resources folks were rolling in, RCMP, and we realized probably about, I'd say 45 minutes to an hour into it that there was going to be a large-scale evacuation.
I was at Micmac Mall and I overheard a conversation between a couple saying how they couldn't return to their home because the communities had been evacuated. And I went over and I said, "Excuse me, did you say there was an evacuation?"
They've called me and said, turn on a radio at the office, there's some fire down Porters Lake Way and there's something about an evacuation. And that was how we found out about it.
I was alerted soon after the fire was discovered, but what really struck me was on Friday night, driving across the McDonald Bridge and looking up and seeing the clouds of smoke and thinking of how close it was to people's homes and the impact it could have. And that really struck home with me.
Lake area. Mandatory evacuation was issued this afternoon for residents from Mineville Road.
All of a sudden up the street came 4 or 5 big fire trucks, and firemen on that were hopping off the truck. So I went over and he just said, "It's coming, get." My wife went downstairs, I hollered at her. We had about 10 minutes notice, that's what it came down to.
Advisory evacuation at this time. We ask that you start packing personal belongings, including clothing, toiletries.
I headed home, made it home, and the rest of my family just made it home from school and from work as well. And we weren't in the house any more than about 5 minutes where there was a knock on our front door that said, you need to get out immediately. So we packed up the few things that we had, the family pet, and out the door we went. Now it just so happened that my husband, instead of evacuating into Dartmouth, he stayed with the camera crews that had been on the Mineville Road. And it was devastating for him to see it, because at one point there were flames behind our house, there was smoke on either side of our house and in the front of our house. And he had said to me, Paula, I don't know if we're going to have a house by tomorrow morning.
Because of the built-up population around this fire, it was that extra amount of urgency that was in everyone's minds, and they were doing everything they could to try to slow this fire down and get it stopped.
I was up on Candy Mountain Road Friday night, and we got pushed off that road I think 4 times Friday night alone, and each time we left the road we were very concerned that when we went back there was not going to be any homes standing.
Harbour Place, a command center of sorts during this crisis. Tonight at 7 o'clock, there will be another public briefing about the fires and the areas impacted by the fires.
We actually checked into Cole Harbour Place and registered, and we attended all of the meetings.
The crew that was at Cole Harbour Place, between Red Cross and all of the volunteers, they just did an exceptional job making sure that we were updated in what was happening.
That's why we were there. It was the source from the mouth. You need to, it doesn't really matter how much you read, you still need to see it with your own eyes before you can believe everything. But having those briefings with the RCMP and the Chief Hallett was invaluable.
You know, the fact that people rallied together and everybody was on the same page, everybody was after the same goal. Let's get this fire under control. Let's get the residents back in their homes, and let's make sure the properties are safe, and most importantly, that people were safe.
The people in the community were there, the business community was there, the volunteers were there, the firefighters were there, and most importantly, the residents were there for each other, and that kind of need for support, which is extremely important.
The compassion, professionalism that I witnessed at Cole Harbour Place was second to none. It really helped us through a very difficult time.
A lot of stress, but again, their first priority is the protection of the property and the people, and they're very rarely thinking about themselves at that point in time. They're thinking about doing what they're trained to do, and they all do it without hesitation. There's no stall. They're right in there as soon as they need to be.
The winds were very high on the Friday and Saturday, and the wind subsided a bit on Sunday, which really gave us the opportunity to get a foothold on the fire. And by that time, of course, a lot of the resources that you had ordered, that we had ordered, had time to come in. And I think that's when the tide started to change, was on the Sunday morning for sure.
They've been waiting all weekend to hear. Some evacuees from the Porters Lake forest fire got the all clear late this afternoon to return home. Thousands of
the fire burnt our shed. We had a shed, and it burnt the steps and scarred our house. And Yeah, it couldn't get much closer. It burnt underneath our oil tank, and obviously the firemen were obviously there to put that one out. And I mean, the children's swing set, it looks fine from the front. You turn around on the back and it's actually all scarred.
Well, my garage went. Intense heat from that, because there was a vehicle in that, there was another vehicle outside the garage. It's melted the siding off the back of my house. There's burn marks within 3 or 4 inches of my deck. There's scorch marks on my deck. Must have been so close. No fire up into the soffits. They saved my house.
Flames were so close and so hot that they melted the windows so they won't open, and it warped the aluminum door on the back of the house. So the flames were very close.
It could have been so much worse, you know, when you look at the fire and see how close it came to houses. You know, those guys, I can only imagine the battle they had on their hands with the fires and that.
I don't think for us that are living on the street we'll ever be able to put into words how we actually feel, because, I mean, you can say thank you. You can say thank you 1,000 times and it still doesn't express what I'm feeling inside.
To say anything at all would be belittling them, because they did so much. I mean, the coordination we found, my wife and I that is, and probably everybody else that's talked with them, they got together so well. It was so well organized, from the volunteers all the way up to the professionals. Everybody got along so well with each other. There's no bickering, no complaining, no nothing. Get the job done, get in, get out.
As mayor, I couldn't be any prouder of the work that they've done. We all should have a great deal of gratitude for their achievements, for their competence, for the skill, for the time and dedication away from their family, especially on Father's Day. It just meant so much to the community that they were there to help out in their time of need.
Any fireman, anybody who had anything to do with saving our community is welcome at my door anytime, day or night, 7/24, 365. I'll offer them beer or any other refreshment that they might want forever. It is just something that we cannot ever say thank you enough.
Those who fought the fire, I can't tell you how proud I am of them and what they've done for people and their lives and for their property. As I went along and viewed some of the parts where the fire had taken place and saw how close it had been to people's homes, and the fact that their backs must have been up against the walls fighting this fire, it makes one appreciate just what they do on a day-to-day basis and how they put their lives on the line for people and for property. And that speaks volumes to the dedication of those who work in natural resources, EMO, our firefighters, our police, and other individuals involved with this. They were professional, they were organized, and it was seamless. They worked together, and that to me was what achieved this success at the end of the day.
If it wasn't for the firefighters and the volunteers, there should not be a house left on Candy Mountain Road. So thank you to all of the people who worked so hard to save our homes.
I live in Mineville, and all along the road you'll see thank you, thank you, thank you on the community sign. And I don't know if words can express how we feel about returning to our homes. And I know people were less fortunate than we were, but the community will come together and help these folks. But my thanks, the community thanks, the world thanks.
I know personally the gratitude that I have and the people from Candy Mountain Road, and of course here at Atlantic View, and all the students in the community, because approximately 95% of our community was evacuated during the whole fire. So we have nothing but appreciation and heartfelt thanks to everyone who helped us out. And we hope that in the future that people have a new appreciation for all of the people who worked so hard for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for saving our community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for everything.